The first notes drifted through the hospital lobby like ghosts from another lifetime, soft, hesitant, then building into something that made Eleanor Chen's breath catch in her throat. She'd been CEO of Chen Medical Technologies for 8 years, had negotiated billion-dollar mergers without flinching, had delivered eulogies for both parents with dry eyes. But standing there in her $1,000 suit, coffee halfway to her lips, she felt her carefully constructed world tilt on its axis. Because that melody, those specific intervals, that particular rhythm, only one person in the world knew that song. And he'd been dead for 15 years. The man at the piano was nothing like Marcus. Where her first love had been polished and confident, this stranger looked worn down by life itself. His jacket was frayed at the cuffs, his jeans faded from too many washes. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, sat beside him on the bench, her leg in a cast, her eyes fixed on her father's fingers as if they held all the magic in the universe. He played with a gentle competence that spoke of distant training, muscle memory surfacing through years of neglect. Eleanor's security detail shifted uncomfortably as she stood frozen. She was supposed to be touring the pediatric wing, a photo opportunity, really, though she'd never admit that publicly. Her company had just donated $5 million for new equipment, and the hospital wanted to thank her publicly. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The melody continued, weaving through the antiseptic air, each note a key turning in locks she'd welded shut a lifetime ago. The girl whispered something to her father. He smiled, a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and began to sing, his voice rough but sincere. The words were different from what Eleanor remembered. These lyrics spoke of bedtimes and nightlights, of princess dreams and morning pancakes. But the bones of the song were the same. The song Marcus had composed for her on their last night together, before he left for the music scholarship in Vienna. Before the car accident that never should have happened. She'd kept only one thing from that relationship, a recording on a cassette tape, now deteriorating in a storage unit somewhere. She'd told herself she kept it for sentimental reasons, but the truth was simpler and more painful. It was proof that someone had once loved her enough to turn that love into music. Before she became the Eleanor Chen who built empires. When she was just Ellie, a girl who believed in forever. Ms. Chen, her assistant, David, touched her elbow gently. They're waiting for us upstairs. But Eleanor was already walking toward the piano. The security team exchanged glances and followed, uncertain. She never deviated from a schedule. Never showed weakness. Never let her personal life intersect with her public image. The man noticed her approach and his fingers faltered. The melody died mid-phrase. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the worry lines carved deep. The girl, his daughter, looked up with curious brown eyes, so much like her father's. That song, Eleanor heard herself say, her voice strange to her own ears. Where did you learn it? The man's expression shifted from confusion to something like embarrassment. I'm sorry, we're not supposed to be here. The regular waiting room is full, and Mia needed a distraction. Her surgery is in an hour and she's scared. He started to stand. We'll go. Please don't. Eleanor raised a hand. The song. I need to know. He studied her face, really seeing her for the first time, and something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe, or just the acknowledgement that this obviously important woman wasn't going away. It was my brother's, he said. Quietly. Marcus Reeves. He was a musical genius, everyone said so. Composed this when he was 19. I found the chic music in his things after the accident. I was only 13 then, but I taught myself to play it. Change the words for Mia. His hand rested protectively on his daughter's shoulder. It's the only thing I have left of him. The lobby seemed to disappear. There was only this man, Marcus's brother, and the impossible connection spanning decades. Danny, she whispered. You're Danny. His eyes widened. How do you? I'm Eleanor. Ellie. I was, your brother and I. Oh my God. Danny sat down heavily on the piano bench. You're the one. He talked about you constantly that last year. Drove me crazy with it, honestly. Ellie this, Ellie that. His voice cracked. You were the last person he called before the accident. The police told us. Eleanor felt tears threatening for the first time in years. They'd fought that night. She'd told him not to go to Vienna, to stay with her instead. He'd said she was being selfish, that she didn't understand what the scholarship meant. In her anger and hurt, she'd hung up. He'd gotten in the car upset, distracted. 3 hours later, a police officer was at her dorm room door. I didn't know he had a brother, she said, though of course she had. She'd known everything about Marcus once. But grief had made her selfish with her memories, hoarding them, refusing to share them with anyone who might have understood. Danny Reeves, he said, extending a hand. When she took it, his grip was warm and calloused. This is my daughter, Mia. She's got a bone tumor in her leg. They're removing it today, and they think they got it early, but... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Eleanor looked at the little girl, who was watching this adult interaction with the gravity of someone who'd grown up too fast. Hi, Mia, she said, crouching down to the child's level. Your daddy played a very special song. It was written for me a long time ago by someone I loved very much. Did he die? Mia asked with the blunt honesty of children. Daddy says Uncle Marcus died before I was born. He did, Eleanor said softly. But hearing that song again, it's like he sent me a message. Across all these years. Danny's voice was thick. We can't afford this hospital, really. The surgery, the treatment. I'm a music teacher at a public school. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and the insurance. He shook his head. But this is the best pediatric oncology unit in the state. I figured I'd sell the house, figure something out. You do what you have to do for your kids. Eleanor stood up, her mind already calculating. In the past, she might have written a check and walked away, another charitable donation for the tax write-off. But something had shifted. Marcus's melody had opened a door she'd kept locked, and behind it wasn't just grief but possibility. What if, she said slowly, the hospital's new equipment fund included a provision for families in financial hardship? Complete coverage for qualified cases. She turned to David, who was already typing furiously on his phone. Make it happen. Retroactive to today. Danny stared at her. You can't, that's not. Your brother gave me the most precious gift anyone ever gave me, Eleanor said, her voice steady now. He saw me, really saw me, and turned that into something beautiful. I've spent 15 years building walls, thinking that's what success looked like. Maybe it's time I built something else. The surgery was successful. Mia's prognosis was excellent. Eleanor sat with Danny in the waiting room for all 4 hours, and they talked, really talked, about Marcus, about loss, about the lives they'd built in the aftermath of tragedy. Danny told her about his wife, about choosing teaching because it kept him close to music without the pressure Marcus had faced. Eleanor told him about the empire she'd built, brick by brick, to prove to herself that she was strong enough to stand alone. But being strong doesn't mean being alone, Danny said, echoing words his brother had once said to her. 6 months later, the Marcus Reeves Memorial Music and Medical Fund had helped 43 families. Eleanor had hired Danny as the program's director, and his daughter was in remission. They weren't together, that would be too tidy, too much like a fairy tale. But they were friends, family, even, connected by grief transformed into purpose. And sometimes, late at night in her office, Eleanor would play the recording of that melody. It sounded different now, not like an ending, but like a bridge spanning the distance between who she'd been and who she might still become. Marcus had written a song about love, and somehow, impossibly, it had found its way back to her, reminding her that the most powerful thing we can do is remain open to the unexpected connections that make us human. The melody played on, a testament to the eternal truth that love, once given voice, never truly dies. It simply waits for the right moment to be heard again.